Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we are going to have an early impression video, a late night insight, or a quick hit video if you will, into a Roja Dove. And today in Texas, it was in the 80s. It felt like a summer day already. So I figured what better time than now to get a jump start on doing a Roja fragrance that's actually beautiful for the heat. And it's called Oceania. So Oceania is an eau de parfum, as you can see. It's from one of Roja's cheaper collection. You know, it's not, one of the very high-end lines. One of the more affordable Roja Doves, let's say. And this is the third time I've actually worn this to bed, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it each time. And so I want to give you my thoughts on it. I don't own a bottle, but I want to give you my thoughts because I think it's actually a really good perfume. So let's read the little blurb, and then I'll kind of give you my 2 cents on what I think and what comes to mind as I wear Oceania. So, and first of all, I have to say a big thank you to DL Qualia, who, wherever you are, mate, I hope you're doing well, who sent me this sample set probably over a year ago when I first started my channel. I think he literally sent this to me when I had like 50 subscribers. And you can see how much of Oceania I've worn. And, you know, but I haven't talked about it. There's still more like this that I still have not talked about from this sample set. For example, Roja's regular original Oud, Sweetie Oud Parfum, Burlington 1819, and Elysium. So more videos to come, all thanks to the kindness of one subscriber. So again, thank you very much. I'm blessed and honored to have such fantastic subscribers. So let's read the little blurb according to the Roja website. The little title says, "A Fragrance for Change." And 100 mils will run you 295 euros. Not too bad, actually. And here's the little blurb. A citrus cocktail opens this creation and runs throughout as lemon and grapefruit mingle with bergamot, mandarin, and lime. Fresh aquatic herb notes extend the distinct freshness of this accord and mingle beautifully down into the floral heart based around the fresh sweetness of geranium and the creamy exotic tones of jasmine. A bold base acts like Velcro, enabling this resolutely fresh composition to stay close to the skin and permeate throughout the day, mingled around a dry, natural base of moss notes and the skin-like combination of sandalwood and orris. And key ingredients say bergamot, lime, mandarin, geranium, jasmine, sambac, moss notes, sandalwood, and orris. And it says, Roja's musing, deeply concerned by the vulnerability at the heart of our fragile oceans. A donation from every sale of Oceania Eau de Parfum will be made by charities dedicated to protecting our precious seas. Echoing the infinity of our oceans, this fragrance opens with a wave of invigorating freshness from bergamot, lime, and mandarin. Geranium and jasmine drift in on the breeze from a nearby island, while moss, sandalwood, and orris offers a warm caress as if kissed by the sun, whose light reflects on the waves. Okay, so enough of the marketing stuff. Let me just kind of tell you what I get. So first of all, this fragrance opens up very similar to Elysium to my nose. If you've ever smelled Roja's Elysium, which I'll do a video on Elysium one of these days, and if you've ever smelled that, you know, Elysium is basically Roja's take on a blue fragrance. In a nutshell, imagine you took Chanel's Bleu de Chanel and blended it with like Aventus, and you kind of get this, you know, you get Elysium, basically, is kind of what you get. And it is a very similar opening to Elysium, except it focuses even more on the citrus freshness. And if you know Roja's style, actually, as soon as you spray this, there is something about this DNA that just screams that this is a Roja, right? I bet you if you blindfolded me and had me smell this, I could guess this was a Roja creation. It has that, you know, it has that Roja DNA about it. And the top is a pretty common top with what seem like a million citrus notes. Like all of these citruses just kind of splash in your face at once, right? And so you get lemon, lime, orange, grapefruit, which actually, thinking about it now, the grapefruit might actually be what lends it to remind me of that Elysium, because, you know, grapefruit is a big component of Bleu de Chanel Eau de Parfum. And I think that's probably what Elysium was kind of going after, the Eau de Parfum, not so much the Parfum, which I think the grapefruit's still there, but maybe they've removed some of the incense in the Parfum. I can't exactly remember, but yeah, that designer-like grapefruit is what you'll pick up on early on in this fragrance. And to be fair, it is a beautiful opening, and for a hot summer day, I'm sure this would be absolutely gorgeous, right? And there is a note in here that if you've been following my Roja reviews, you've heard before. He uses it over and over and over again, and it's called Lytsea cubiba. And Lytsea cubiba is basically the shrub which mostly grows in Asia, and it has these little white flowers on them that acts kind of as like a conductor for the citruses, if that makes sense. So what I mean by that is it extends the citrus note deeper into the dry down. And if you've ever smelled Roja's Herod pour Homme, I actually have a review on Herod pour Homme. You can go check that out. It opens up actually very similar. Imagine Oceania opens up as a mixture of Herod's pour Homme and Elysium, right? Dead smack kind of in the middle of the two. And Herod's pour Homme has a very posh opening, but it's about 3 times the price of Oceania. It's a very expensive Roja. And like I said, I have a review on the channel if you want to check it out. And if you're interested in finding more videos on a house, one thing that I started to do is I gave each house its own playlist. So even some of the ones where I only have one review on, it does have its own playlist. You can search by the playlist, find the house. So if you found Roja, you'll see, 15 videos all of Roja Dove, and you can just kind of watch the ones you're interested in. But the opening is very similar to Herod's pour Homme, which also uses citruses and that, let's say, a cubiba note. And which is kind of not surprising, as I found, many Rojas have this similarity to each other. So if you've ever tested the Middle Eastern line from Roja Dove, you'll notice that many of the bases of those fragrances share lots of similarities. He basically finds this formula that works, and he just pushes a ton of releases on that variation. On this particular theme that he's kind of found that works. And it is, it's something that I guess if you're kind of cynical, you might think it kind of a money grab, as they're issuing a lot of different fragrances, but they don't have huge differences between them. They have a lot of similarities between them. On the other side of the coin, you could say, you know what, it's kind of his DNA. It's his house DNA that you're obviously smelling. And, this also has some similarities in the opening to La Oscar pour Homme. And, just he has this particular style with the citruses, and it's here, is basically what I'm trying to say. And this is, no doubt about it, a posh summer perfume. It's I would absolutely 100% rock this. 100%. I would wear this. The herbal lavender, the rosemary, the thyme, which is also great on chicken, by the way, rosemary and thyme, makes this appearance and gives it a slightly old school vibe. And so if you know lavender and rosemary fragrances of the past, which is a combination that is just like classic masculine, lavender and rosemary, going all the way back to something like Paco Rabanne pour Homme from 1973. This is a fantastic barbershop fougere, beautiful lavender rosemary combination here. If you know this right here, this is a Chypre from the decade after Paco Rabanne pour Homme. This is Basile Uomo from the 80s, and this is a fantastic take on lavender. And it also has rosemary and thyme. It actually has a very similar note tree to Oceania. Very similar, shockingly similar. There's basil in here. There's no basil in Oceania. There's grapefruit. There's lavender. There's lemon. There's rosemary. There's tangerine instead of orange. There's thyme. There's a vervain note in here, which I think I've seen Roja use before, but it's not listed in Oceania. There is galbanum, which there is galbanum in the base of Oceania. There's sandalwood, which there's sandalwood in here. There is patchouli. I don't think there's any patchouli in Oceania. Roja stayed away from that. And there's oak moss and leather. So there is oak moss, or what he calls mossy notes, mosses, which probably means it's one of those oak moss with the, bad parts removed. The, I forgot what it was called, acetine or, whatever the note is that can cause kind of a rash. They can actually go in there and remove it. It's just more expensive to use that kind of oak moss. He calls it mossy notes, so I'm guessing it's something along those lines in Oceania. But the difference is Basile Uomo has more of this old school clove, nutmeg, cinnamon. There's a lot more spices in there, and that's what is, just it is it's very it's prominently missing, let's say. So if you're someone that knows vintage perfume and you smell this, you will get kind of this vintage feel, but the way that he's kind of shot it into the future is he's removed some of these old school spices, which make it seem kind of vintage, like clove and nutmeg and cinnamon, and leather. Leather can sometimes be seen as kind of vintage old school. And what has ended up happening here is there's a couple twists and turns that Oceania takes that makes me like the fragrance even more. So the very first thing that I have to say is that the florals come out to play. And you would think, you know what, that would probably be a bad thing, because I don't really like heavy florals in a fragrance, but they're kind of blended beautifully with these citruses in the opening. So what ends up happening, and it stays masculine too, that's the other thing. This fragrance stays masculine. I would say it's probably like 90%, traditionally masculine. Although I think a woman could easily wear this. I think that you would probably find this on mostly guys, let's say. But what ends up happening is these florals start to come out to play. So you get Jasmine Sambac and Jasmine from Grasse. You get geranium, and you get Roja's violet. He loves violet. Throws violet into basically everything. It's also his color of choice. If you ever see him dressed, he's almost always dressed in, violet, or sitting on a violet couch, or violet lampshade. It's just that Tyrian purple color is kind of his thing. And there's ylang ylang in here. So that's the first thing, is the florals. The second thing about this perfume that really endears this fragrance to me is that it never turns into a full aquatic, regardless of the name, regardless of the marketing campaign. So when you go to Roja.com and you look at the pictures, it's like, the bottle of Oceania with like water drops on it, sitting next to a pool, or sitting on like a beach with like seashells around it. That's the picture that's the marketing campaign. But I don't smell that. I don't smell this cologne heavy, it never turns into a full aquatic. In fact, it just barely even hints that there's water anywhere around. And like I said, this is the third time that I've worn this, and each time I keep thinking, man, the name is strange. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like they just kind of took a fragrance and tried to make it fit into this Oceania vibe, which actually I like. I like what they did here more than if they tried to really make it a true aquatic. I'll talk about some fragrances I already have that kind of fall into this summer, aquatic-like wears that I could wear instead of this. But one thing that does happen that I want to mention with this fragrance is a couple hours in, after the, citruses truly dry down, because that, let's say, a Cubiba note is almost like a magician's trick, right? The citruses are very volatile, and they're going to fly off of your skin very quickly, no matter what it seems like you're smelling. Like right now, a couple hours in again, and it still seems like I'm smelling lemon and oranges and stuff like that. I'm not. I'm smelling that, let's say, a Cubiba note that just extends into the dry down. But what's very interesting about this is as it switches to the heart of the perfume and the base starts to kind of come up more, what ends up happening is the Letsea Cobiba note almost seems exposed. It seems like it's kind of standing there by itself, like there's nothing around it anymore protecting it. You know, like it's the king without any of its pawns or rooks or bishops or knights around, right? It's just kind of alone on an island. And that note starts to blend with the florals and a little bit, just a little bit of this cologne note starts to come through. And that cologne note is what gives it this oceanic vibe, right? And it kind of turns into something that is slightly sour, which I don't mind because at least it's not sweet, right? That's my motto. I don't like sweet fragrances, and at least this stays, you know, bitter, dry, sour. Even though for a fragrance named Oceania, Roja mentioned that the oak moss and the juniper gives it this kind of dry feeling, and it does. You know, it does have this dry, woody, there's a woody dry down to this, which is very, very interesting, along with some resinous galbanum, which galbanum is usually a note that you find in the top of a fragrance. Like if you know Chanel's number 19, if you know Aramis, Devon has a beautiful galbanum note in the top. And you usually find galbanum in the top, but in multiple Rojas now, I've seen him stick galbanum in the base. I think he also did it with Apex, if memory serves. And you know, it adds for a different element, right? So as it transitions and that cologne note starts to come forth, it gives it this sourness, but it's balanced by this herbal provincial lavender, which is beautiful. So just know that this fragrance is not a pure aquatic. It is, you know, if I was blindfolded, I probably would say that it's, you know, a citrusy, floral, woody fragrance, right? Woody with a little bit of that, you know, Roja labdanum and benzoin and just a little bit of warmth. Vetiver, he likes throwing those kind of notes in. But the cedarwood and the sandalwood, the woodiness of the dry down plays a very prominent role. And so it transitions as it continues to dry down and as it continues to get to the base. Roja says that the woods mixed with that iris, and there is an iris note here, very posh iris, that feels like human skin. And to me, I don't actually get that. But what I get is I get something that begins to smell like what I can imagine they were trying to smell, turn into like this ocean, you know, maybe like clay, maybe like sandy clay. But what it ends up turning into is something that smells like petrichor. So there's this, have you ever smelled this? This is Narciso Rodriguez for Him Eau de Toilette. Look at the bottle. See how it looks like almost like nail polish bottle? And it's very gray. This is perfect for a rainy day because it literally has this petrichor, almost like rainfall hitting concrete. But the ultimate petrichor fragrance, honestly, if you want my advice, and you can still buy this on Russian Adam's website. He did the History of a Tar collection, Areej Dore. And there is a fragrance in here called Mitti. And Mitti is basically this petrichor in a bottle. I mean, it's not even a fragrance. It's kind of like a note. Like it's like an accord, and it's only like, it's under $100, I think. I think you can get a full bottle of this for under $100. It's beautiful to spray at night because, you know, it gives this, imagine you're standing in India or something and the first monsoon rains come and hit kind of that dry clay and give off this, you know, like this, the ground, like, you know, releasing all of its built up energy. It's, you know, the word perfume means to smoke in Latin. And it almost feels like the ground gets hit with the rain and this smoke emits, right? But it's water hitting dry earth, right? That hasn't had a rainy season in an entire year. And there's a little bit of that here, mixed with clay, but mixed with that Roja Dove poshness, you know, that, and it's funny because I've been going through these Xerjoff sample sets, and I despise Xerjoff, and it's interesting because some people get offended. They're like, oh, you like Roja Dove, but you don't like Xerjoff? Roja Dove is head and shoulders above Xerjoff to me. They're not even in the same ballpark. When I smell stuff like this, and I know I give Roja a hard time, he deserves it a lot of the time, to be honest with you. But when I smell stuff like this, there's no comparison to the disgusting, sweet, cheap-smelling Xerjoffs I've been doing on my live streams. Go check out my live streams. Go watch my first impression on. I've done 22 Xerjoffs, give or take, in the last 2 weeks. And, you know, going back to Roja just feels like a breath of fresh air for a niche house. Now, my heart is with vintage. It just is. And honestly, I think Roja's heart is probably with vintage too. But he creates some very posh... I would wear this. I would absolutely 100% wear this. Now, the question becomes, would I buy it? Because, you know... you guys probably are not in my position, but since I have such a large collection, you know, I would just wear something like Creed's Erolfa. This, I mean, I still have half a bottle left, right? This is a little bit more truly oceanic. And there's some very interesting notes in here, but this is a Pierre Bourdon. I mean, this is a Pierre Bourdon at the height of his powers, 1992. He put this out. A couple years before that, his mentor, Edmund Rudnitska, put out this. This is Ocean Rain. I love Ocean Rain. Ocean Rain is kind of the type of aquatic that I want to wear. It's discontinued now. It's actually Edmund Rudnitska's last it's Edmund Rudnitska's last perfume. You can see the short ingredient list. This was a flop because Edmund Rudnitska didn't put a ton of cologne in the 90s when everyone wanted a huge amount of cologne, right? But for a fragrance lover going back and testing this, it's almost like smelling the ocean while it was forming. It's like antiseptic ocean, you know? It's like life being formed. And inside of the ocean, it's bloody, and species are, you know, almost locked in like this, locked in this struggle for survival. Which species can adapt first, and which ones are going to be extinct? Because remember, 99.9%, maybe even well over that, of all species that have ever lived are extinct, right? And many of those species lived in the ocean, and so, you know, this is that smell to me. It's a total niche scent before there was niche. I hate that word, but it's true. It's this very challenging designer, and I absolutely love it. So why would I give Roja $300 when I have stuff like this to wear? Or even this. This is a Jean Carleo. This is a masterpiece that no one talks about. You know, Jean Carleo, he used to love fine French perfumery. So he loved making stuff that had lots of real Mysore sandalwood. There's real Mysore sandalwood in this. The fact that you can get these for $40 and there's real Mysore sandalwood is insane still. It's insane to me. And you can see the bottom, copyright 1994. And they wanted him to make an aquatic. He didn't want to make an aquatic. He was on his way out anyways. So he said, okay, I'll make you guys an aquatic. So he made an aquatic where the top is just a little bit of cologne for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then it dries down to this Mysore sandalwood, which again, Oceania has a sandalwood base. Mysore sandalwood, and some green touches with oak moss, a lot of real oak moss, you know, old school, classic in a blue bottle. And so for me, actually, probably the closest comparison to Oceania is this. It's Voyageur by Jean Patou, because this is a classic fine French perfumery in a oceanic type bottle, but it doesn't really smell very oceanic. Same for Oceania. It's a very similar type setup, and I like it. I like it. I absolutely would wear it. But would I buy it when I have this? No, I don't think I would. But do I want to share my thoughts with you guys? Absolutely. I like how creamy it is. I like the floral touches in Oceania. And, you know, I trust my nose. So when people give me a hard time about, oh, how could you like Roja when you hate Xerjoff? They're not even on the same planet to me. You know, but I have to trust my nose and tell you guys what I smell and leave out and just put blinders on and leave all the other bullshit out, you know? And this is a good perfume. It is. I mean, people love it when I bash stuff, and it takes, you know, it takes some intestinal fortitude to stand up here and say something is shite. But it also takes some intestinal fortitude to stand up here and say something is good. Maybe when now it's kind of popular to bash Roja. This is a good fragrance for sure. Be amazing for summer. I would wear the shit out of it. I'd wear the piss out of it. But would I buy a bottle? Would I give Roja $300? No. I mean, I'm saving up for a bottle of Metallica by Guerlain, which is top of my wish list. I would love a bottle of Jeddi. You know, I'd rather make some big splashes with my money, and giving $300, $400, $500 here or there all adds up. So yes, I'm glad to try it. Thank you, DL Qualia, for sending this to me. I hope this review was helpful for some folks who were, you know, maybe looking for a summer fragrance. This is definitely a good one to put on your to sniff list. And it's not super expensive either, even at retail, you know, under 300 euros. So, or 300 pounds, sorry. Roja does his in pounds. So, yes, if you have experience with Oceania, do let me know. And if you have experience with the House of Roja, I'd love to know your thoughts. I love seeing your faces in the comments. Leave a like on the video before you leave. It does help the ridiculous algorithm that we always, you know, talk down about. But, you know, the algorithm recommends these videos to other people who there are, I think, a whole army of people out there like us who really love perfume, and Fragcom just isn't, you know, giving them what they need. And so I want like-minded people to be able to find me. I want perfume lovers to be able to find me. So, so yes, likes and subscriptions and comments and all that stuff helps. So cheers, guys. I appreciate you watching. Have a great day. Catch you next time. Bye.